This is the warning. And my warnings failed. 2 years from now, the American people will get a chance to put a check on Donald Trump. But until then, there are no checks, at least not in Washington, D.C. Yesterday, while North Korean and Russian troops massed for their largest assault on Ukraine, a European country, Donald Trump Jr., Uday, for the next 4 years, taunted the Ukrainian head of state. The spoiled, rotten child of the president-elect of the United States said, "We're going to cut off your allowance." There are hundreds of thousands of people dead, and the Russians have made clear they're not going to stop in Ukraine. One of the consequences of the American people's decision will be war. Now, the American people were hustled by a con man, and by a significant majority, they bought in. They bought into the lies of a man who said he was a man of peace, and that peace comes through strength. He was right about that. Peace does come through strength, but Trump is a fool and he's weak. And the world's dictators, whom he fetishizes and loves and praises, they laugh at him. They think of him as a fool, the most easily manipulatable American president in American history. Our adversaries cannot compete with us economically, cannot compete with us technologically, cannot compete with us militarily. What they have relied on is our idiotized culture. What they have placed all of their bets on is the rancidity of the man the American people have made commander-in-chief. And the price will be very, very heavy. The Democrats have no power in Washington, D.C. They can stop nothing. They lost power because of cynicism, because they embraced a man who was unfit to run, whose ego was too big to turn away from power. And now we have Trump. Let's talk about the three issues. The first is world peace. And Donald Trump, a week in to being president-elect, has set the path of the world inexorably towards war. Cutting off Ukraine will spread aggression in Europe. There's really not a lot of point in arguing about it. It will just happen. This will be a brutal spring. We will forsake free people in Europe, and they will suffer. What a moment of national shame for the United States. And the Chinese will be watching, and soon, when their invasion fleet is ready, before the end of Trump's term, they'll move on Taiwan. The world will be rewritten. The world will be remade. A new era has begun. Donna Bash had a question for the ludicrously dishonest political extremist Jim Jordan. All she wanted to know was, how are you going to deport 15 million people from the continental borders of the United States of America? It's a fair question.
I want to understand, so people say, like, let's say one of these people is living in their apartment complex. Is the military going to come in? Is it the local law enforcement? How is it actually physically going to work?
The Trump administration, the Department of Homeland Security will work with local law enforcement, and we'll focus on the people who 1.3 million already been in front of a judge and said, no, you're not entitled to stay here. You have to be removed. There's an order there, a court of law. They've had their due process. They've had the whole process play out.
So let's move on beyond that population, non-criminals, people who are in the country who are not legal citizens, those who have not committed crimes.
We're starting with the criminal element.
I know, but after that.
1.3. Well, we'll start there and then go from that point.
This is what the American people voted for, and there is going to be a mass deportation. Trump promised one. 15 million appears to be the number. This will be the most expensive logistical operation in American history. To put it into perspective, during World War II, the Army of the United States was 16 million people. My question is, how much will this cost? Where will the deportation camps be? And how will these people be moved? Will it be by air, by tractor trailer? Will they be put on rail cars, freight rail? And where is it that they are going? Clearly, Stephen Miller is the architect of this policy? Who will be the men that implement it? Who are the top people that will likely preside over one of the greatest human rights abuses in American history? Because I'm 54 years old, actuarially at least, I should live long enough to be around for the moment of apology when the United States looks back at this disgraceful moment, when the abominations have been completed, when we realize that this is a different version of the SS St. Louis, when the American people consider what has been done in their name, they will feel shame, and deservedly so. And what about the punishment and the retribution? X is on fire with jubilant extremist young men. Your body, my choice, is what the Nazi Nick Fuentes tweeted out, threatening indiscriminate rape. Trump's supporters in this moment, starting with his son, are unbound, and they're coming. The threats are real. The retribution they promise is real, and it's going to happen. There will be a chilling of free speech. There will be a crushing of dissent. There will be calls made from the White House to PR firms and to law firms saying, fire that person or lose your contract. There will be enemies lists kept in the White House. I'm on one. A lot of my friends are on one. But I want you to know, I will not bow to this man. I stand with Adam Kitzinger. I refuse to be afraid. Instead, I will dissent. I dissent against the surrender of a free people's chance for liberty because they're cut off by the United States government in the face of North Korean and Russian aggression. I dissent over the political persecution, the coming imprisonments, tax audits, and other punishments of Americans who have constitutional rights to speak out, to speak up, and to condemn what Donald Trump is doing in their name. And I will dissent from what will be the largest and most significant abuse of human rights by the United States government, perhaps in its history, or at least since the Civil War. 15 million people are to be captured, zip-tied, hooded perhaps, and sent where? Who knows? Illegal immigration is a legitimate issue, and the border became chaotic. And then the Biden administration lied about it, along with the president's fitness. And the high price for that is what's about to happen. I've said many times on television and other places, there's no flower in all the world more delicate than the male ego. It's very true. And it's done tremendous damage to our country. And the damage is just getting started. There is no way in Washington to stop Donald Trump with congressional votes. He can be slowed down, he can be delayed, but the simple truth is men like Chuck Schumer don't care about you or your family. What they care about is their grip on power. And because they have a grip on power, it means some of the most incompetent communicators, some of the most incompetent political leaders, some of the most incompetent people are the people whose job it is to oppose Donald Trump. And they won't be able to do it because they're not up to the task. And their foolishness, 10 years of it, has led us to this disastrous moment. This era will pass, but it will not pass without damage. The intrusions on our liberties and our rights, coarsening of our society, the institutionalization of cruelty, how commonplace it will be, all of it driven by the disordered man, the world-class demagogue that a clear majority of the American people gave power to. They say in a democracy, the voters are never wrong. But the people who say that are in fact the ones who are wrong. When the Iraq War began, more than 75% of the American people were all behind it. It didn't last long. Elections are a choice, and a lot of Americans didn't like what they saw from the Democratic Party, which has 2 years to get its shit together and be in a position to take advantage of the first midterm election of Donald Trump's incumbency, which historically should be a disaster for him. 2 years from now, Democrats must have a check on Donald Trump. And the only way they'll have one is by taking back the House of Representatives. It means the abandonment of this woke insanity. It means the abandonment of the lecturing and the hectoring and the demands to say your pronouns or else, because the American people have rejected it. And what's coming next is a tsunami of malice and idiocy, and it's going to land because the chance to stop it was at the election. And that failure is one of the most significant in American history. And it will affect the destinies of free people all around the earth. Donald Trump Jr. is a soft-handed imbecile who has never worked an hour in his life. The spoiled, rotten, unaccomplished son of a bully is feeling his oats. The bully is quite clear. He's coming. For me and for everybody who dared to speak out. And his extremism will kill a great many people who don't deserve to die, like in Ukraine. This is a country in Europe. It's a modern country. And it was crushed by the jackboot of a fascist invader. And Donald Trump looks at that, and he put America on the side of Russia and North Korea. The Democratic Party lacked the capacity to make an oppositional argument about him and against him. And now the bill is due. And it will be terrible. Face it, reckon with it, appreciate it, so that 2 years from now, we can stop some of it. We can deny Vance an opportunity to approach the issues that Donald Trump has not completed with the discipline and the focus that Donald Trump lacks because of his mental illnesses. We have crossed the line now into a most dangerous era. It does not mean because an election has been lost that America has been lost, nor does it mean that those who rightly opposed this menace and this malice have lost their right to speak out, to speak up, and to dissent. What Donald Trump is a singular threat and an existential threat. And now, after this election, it's no longer theory. It will be lived experience, and it will be hard. It was unnecessary, but now it is here. Elections have consequences, and this one will have many more than most. This is The Warning. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.